Right, hello, take two. Okay, hello, take two. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. The chat seems to be up and running now. There's a slight technical glitch, which is typical. Again, if someone just wants to type a hello or something just in the chat box, again, just so I know and we know who's here. Okay, hi Megan. That's reassuring. I know that you can hear me and see me. Again, we were going to start at 1, but I'll just give it just a couple more minutes because of that tech issue, to allow some more people to join, and then we'll do introductions, and then we'll answer any questions that you might have about the course. Certainly, if you do have any questions, then feel free just to populate it in the comments box, and we'll address it in a few moments. Okay, thank you, Gary. As I said before, this is going to be recorded, so it will be made available to the audiences afterwards. Again, there's a couple more people joining. As I said, if you just want to put a hello in the chat box so we know who's here. Hi, Georgina. Hi, Sophie. Okay, we'll make a start now. So welcome to this live Q&A session. My name is April Smith and I am the course leader for our Criminology with Psychology degree at the Institute of Criminal Justice Studies, University of Portsmouth. I'm joined today by a few of my colleagues. So we have our Deputy Course Leader, Gary Dalton, with us. We have one of our final year students, Sophie Willett, here as well. We have Lee Mingay from our admissions department and a couple of our social media colleagues as well. So if there's any questions that you do have around admissions or questions that might not be specifically related to our course, then they're going to be able to respond to these in our chat box. So keep an eye out on that. And certainly if you do have any questions for Sophie as a current student, then message her in the comments box and she'll be able to respond to those as well. I'm going to do a introduction, and then, as I said, we'll try to answer all of the questions that you might have. I appreciate that those joining us today will likely comprise some prospective students. some applicants. Some of you may have been to an open day previously. Some of you might be booked onto one of our virtual open days in July. The aim for today isn't to repeat those messages. This isn't a virtual open day. This is just, an informal opportunity to have a chat about the course. And if you've got any questions, then we're going to be able to answer them. I appreciate as well and just want to acknowledge the uncertain climate regarding COVID-19. Whilst there are a number of things that we don't have the definitive answer to at the moment, but we are, as a department and university, implementing a series of contingency measures for the coming academic year. And that is both to ensure that we, protect our students, so ensuring our student safety, but also upholding the student experience as well. And Sophie, if there's anything that you want to add about your experience as a student over the last, few months, then that might be useful. So as I said, so in terms of questions about the course, so that could be if you've got any questions about what you're going to be studying, the way that we teach you, the way we assess you, if you've got any questions around, the support available or employability, then please just put them into the comments box, and myself and my colleagues will then be able to respond to them. In terms of the course itself, I was a student at the University of Portsmouth several years ago, and I actually took this degree. And part of the reason why I took this degree was because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I had done psychology at A-level and really enjoyed it, and criminology sounded interesting. And I think that resonates with quite a lot of our students. And evidently I enjoyed it so much that I continued to stay on and work for the university. I think that one of the things that is really good about our degree is how flexible it is. And what I mean by that is that students can really shape the degree to what interests them. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is our optional modules. So the modules that students can choose to do. And if you look on our webpage, you'll be able to see the list of all the modules that we offer our students. And it's pretty eclectic and eccentric. Some of the more popular criminology modules are things like wildlife crime, missing persons. We also have things like gang crime, prisons, victimology. However, from a psychology perspective, you might be a student that's more interested in psychology and investigation. So maybe you're interested in offender profiling and how we interview suspects and victims and witnesses. So we have modules on that. You might be a student that's more interested in mental health. So we have a module on forensic psychology and mental health, which is actually run by one of our colleagues, Cody Porter, who used to work in a forensic secure institution. So you can really shape the degree to what interests you. One of our new modules as well is our it's psychology and security. And you might wonder what is covered on that, but it has some really interesting topical and current subjects, things like the psychology of terrorism, psychological warfare, psychology of cybercrime. So these are areas that aren't just interesting to students, but are also useful in terms of employability, because these are kind of like growing areas. So I think one of the things that is really good is around the flexibility of the degree. It's also really applied, and what I mean by that is that we introduce students to theory, but we tend to use it more as a building block. So we'll introduce students to theory, and then we'll then apply it to kind of like the real world and real life examples. And this could extend from the topics that we teach, who teaches you. So we have a lot of guest speakers, and so these are people that are working in the fields that you're going to be receiving lectures on. It can also extend into some of the ways in which we assess you as well. So using an example on my module, which is a psychology and criminal justice based module, one of my assessments is when I give students a real life case, and then their assessment is to imagine that they are a expert psychologist, so it's an expert witness testimony where they have to support either the prosecution or the defence and put a statement together. And these are really useful assessments because it's requiring students to think of themselves and to put themselves in the position as a practitioner and as a professional, which is giving, as I say, those useful and practical knowledge and skills that they can take with them when they graduate. I can see Sophie. So Sophie is our final year student, one of our final year students. So she's just again made a little comment about her experience around university, making sure that students have been kept informed. Sophie also has conducted a placement year as well. So she did a year abroad in Norway. So if any of you are interested in anything like that, then she'd be happy to share her motivation and her experience of doing that. I think in terms of, some of the questions that we tend to get asked quite often from our students, some are around so assessments, so students wanting to know how they're going to be assessed. So we tend to use, we have a diverse curriculum, so we are quite diverse in the way that we assess our students. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons is because we appreciate that our students learn differently and have different strengths and weaknesses. I was a bit of a weirdo that liked doing exams because I had a good memory, but I appreciate that a lot of students, a significant proportion of students, don't like doing exams. So we do vary it for that reason. The other reason is because, again, as I alluded to, the fact that we're quite an applied degree, we like to assess students in ways that are really going to develop their transferable skills, so ways that are going to be useful and attractive to employers. So there may be things like group presentations, which are really fantastic because it means that you can evidence your ability to work as part of a team. And you can also then evidence your ability to communicate to an audience. There are ways in which we assess you via posters. So for those that are maybe more visual or creative minded. Report writing, again, really beneficial to be able to show that you've got experience of writing reports. And with all of these ways, we certainly don't kind of like throw you in at the deep end. We make sure in your first year that we do teach you and show you and give you the skill set to be able to know how to structure a poster versus a report. So we do have some of those more creative methods of assessing our students, in addition to ways that you think might be more traditional. So yes, there are a minority of exams. Certainly there will be essays. Typically in your first length, they're around 1,500 words, but they could go upwards to 3,000 words in your final year. So in terms of, so I've got one question coming in around placement and the benefits of it. So as I say, so Sophie might be able to offer some perspective, given that she did take a year-long placement. There are different types of placements that you can take. So the year-long placement is what we would call a sandwich year. So this is where you would take your first and your second year with us at university. Your third year would then comprise a year-long placement. That could be overseas, but likewise, it could be an organisation in this country, could be very local. And then you would then return back in your final year to join us. So it becomes 4 years. That's something that we do see more students taking advantage of and utilising that opportunity. However, there will be some students, and for whatever reason, that taking a year-long placement isn't attractive, isn't viable. So we do offer more like short-term mini placements, and a student would do this as one of their optional modules. So they could choose to take a placement which would last 12 weeks, and that would be in either their first teaching block or our second teaching block. And again, this would likely be with a local organisation. In terms of the benefits of the placements, it's really around the personal and professional development. When I'm talking about personal development, you see quite a significant difference in students that have done some kind of a placement, particularly in respect of their confidence. And then professionally, which again is one of the reasons why a lot of students choose to do it. It's something extra. It's something additional that you can show that you've done, which then makes you more competitive and potentially more attractive to some employers. So students will want to do it for different reasons, but all students that have done any kind of placement, whether it is the year long or the 12-week, will always show will be able to demonstrate some kind of benefit in taking it. When I was a student, I chose not to do a placement, and the reason I chose not to do a placement was because I didn't want it to eat away at one of my options, because we had so many interesting options. I wanted to take them. But that's not to say that not doing a placement disadvantaged me or is going to disadvantage you. Any kind of work experience that you can gain, whether that's something as simple as work shadowing for a couple of days at a probation office, which I did, or something like that would require a bit more commitment. I was a special constable for a few years. So there's all ways of gaining that work experience, outside of a placement. But there is that option there available to you. So I hope that answers your question. And I can see that Sophie as well has inputted something about her experience in Norway, which was with our University of Oslo. Really interesting for those of you that might be interested in prisons, and looking at comparative prison systems. Norway is a good comparative example for that. So another question then from Sean. So in terms of overseas placements, so fortunately, Sean, I don't know if you are an applicant or just a prospective student. By the time that you join us, the overseas placements, should be up and running, and COVID-19 should hopefully just be a memory. So in terms of some of the overseas placements that we have, and that would be available, we have more local places within Europe, so places like Malta, as Sophie went to, places in Norway. We have places that are further afield, so we've got Canada. We've got Korea as well, and the decision of where you take your placement overseas will comprise a number of variables and factors for students. It could be something as simple as the weather. You're obviously going to be spending a lot of time in these places, so you're going to be getting to know the culture and the language quite a lot. Although all the places that we teach are English speaking, but the placements as well. The different areas will be better for different things. Korea is based more within a policing institute, so that would be more suitable for someone that's interested in going down the policing line of route. As I said, Malta is better. Norway is better for those of you that might be interested in exploring, different prison systems. So it does vary, and we're constantly kind of expanding the list of placements overseas. So I hope that answers the question. And again, you've got some links to, in terms of web pages. And we do have, in terms of placements, we've got a coordinator within the department that helps students to find these opportunities. We've also got our placement and internship centre as well that helps students with finding placements, with applying to placements. And we'll take them through the process as well. And as I say, we keep on checking in with our students that do choose to do that. And as Gary said, students can find their own placements as well. We have had that happen in the past. So in terms of, Lisa has asked a question around optional modules. So in your first year, everything is core. We have a really diverse mix of students that join us. So they come from various different backgrounds, they've all studied different things. So that first year is really around making sure that each student, irrespective of what they studied previously, have the building blocks and are all brought up to the same equal level. So that's why everything is core in your first year. And you will study some criminology modules. So you've got understanding criminology, which is quite theoretical. You've got criminal justice. You will then have some what I would call the hard, pure psychology-based modules. So things like social psychology. And then you've got the criminal psychology module as well. When you move into your second and third year, that's when there's more of a focus on independent study, and also when you can start to choose the optional modules, which are much more specialist, normally more niche, will often include, as I said, a lot more guest speakers. So you will choose, so on this degree, so you will have one module that you get to choose in your first teaching block, which will be 12 weeks running from around September to December time, and then you'll be able to choose a second optional module in your second teaching block, which runs from runs from January to just after Easter. So you'll choose two in your second year, and then that will be the same in your third year. The addition in your third year will be the incorporation of the dissertation, and the dissertation can be on whatever you want it to be, as long as there is some link to criminology and psychology. But you can imagine the options there. There's a lot of breadth in terms of what that could be on. So you have even more kind of choice in your final year. And as I said, those optional modules, yes, you can see them on our webpage, and you can certainly, certainly kind of like shape the degree and take particular pathways. You might find, coming here that you become more interested in forensics or more interested in policing or prisons. So you can take certain options to reflect that, and to offer you some kind of a pathway. Okay, another one from Sean in terms of being a mature student. Again, yeah, our student profile is diverse, not just in terms of what our students have studied, but in terms of their backgrounds, their experiences, and that will include the ages of our students as well. We do have some students that have joined us, kind of like later in their careers, that have worked within the criminal justice system, and so we're like ex-practitioners. So mature students is something that's quite typical and usual. In terms of extra support, we really try to tailor our support to each individual student. Your first port of call for any support is going to be your personal tutor. So you'll be assigned a personal tutor when you first join, and that will be within the context of a personal tutor group, and you will also have a series of one-to-ones with the personal tutor. So if you've got any questions or queries around, you potentially, particularly when you first join, and an induction week in particular is around orientation. If you feel that maybe you need extra support with something, whatever that might be, could be something like academic writing skills, then it will be your personal tutor that will be able to liaise with you and signpost you to our additional support services. As I say, we've got our academic skills unit. We have our learning support tutors as well. So we have two that work predominantly in our department, to give students kind of any extra support that they might need. Again, we've got our wellbeing service, so it really depends on each individual student's circumstances. But we do try to make sure that we do have, across our degree, there is that sense of cohesion and community. So we don't tend to we obviously don't want to like isolate students or anything like that. So and a lot of the ways in which you are taught is based within seminars, smaller discussion based groups as well, which is really great because there's the whole thing about kind of like peer learning and learning from one another, which can be really beneficial. And particularly if someone does have more life experience, then that can be really, really useful. Okay, so I think that is some of the questions. Lucy Marie has asked a question around studying aspects of criminology. Might need a little bit more clarity on that. In terms of the way that the degree is structured, you can kind of see the degree in three kind of like components. So you have the modules that are kind of criminology and criminal justice based. Then you've got your pure psychology modules, and you will have one of those at each year. And then the proportion, well, the majority of the degree is then what we would call criminal psychology. So that's when it's bridging it together. And that will comprise, as I said, the modules such as forensic psychology and mental health, forensic psychology and investigation, psychology and criminal justice. We have a module as well on psychology of criminal conduct, so understanding offending behaviour, and also then thinking about interventions and working with offenders. So it very much is one of those like bridging degrees, which is it's one of those degrees as well that tends to it opens doors rather than closes them. It's not a restrictive degree, and that's because of the subject matter. Criminology with psychology can extend to practically every job that you apply to. So it is kind of like a useful. It's a useful degree to do, whether, as I say, you're a student that maybe doesn't know what they want to do, or as I say, you might be. We do have a proportion of students that are very driven and know exactly what they want to do. In terms of, again, I don't know if you have any questions around, employment or careers. It tends to pop up quite frequently. In terms of where our graduates tend to find themselves, it is very diverse. And as I said, that's because we do have a mix of students. We have students that, as I say, a lot of our students choose the degree because it's interesting. They're not quite sure whether they even want to work in the criminal justice system. But you do have those students that are more driven, or more kind of like focused on a particular area. And that can be some of your more mainstream obvious routes, such as policing, not necessarily as a police officer, prisons, probation. There are some roles within, third sector and charity organisations that can be, working with victims or working with ex-offenders. Some of our students will end up working for local councils or the government, particularly in research-based roles. Proportion of our students as well choose to stay on and do further study with us, so to do a master's degree and end up going into some kind of academia. But certainly, the roles aren't restrictive to working in the criminal justice system. In terms of areas where we do start to see some more employability or some growth in employability, certainly areas around cybercrime is one. Hence, that's why we've incorporated that into our curriculum, not just because it's interesting, but again, it's useful for when you do graduate and leave. So there is a mix when it comes to jobs that people go into. As a university, we do really well with employability. We know that 97.5% of our students are in further study or employment, which is really great. And again, that's partly because we are such an applied degree. Okay, so any more questions around, as I say, if there's anything around support or assessments, or the way in which we teach you, or induction week, for those of you that are planning to come to join us in October. I think the other thing that tends to pop up as well a lot with students is around contact hours. So what your typical week will look like as a student here. And it does vary. Typically in your first week, you will have between 9 to 12 hours. And these will be, your lectures and your supplementary seminars and workshops. So these will be things that are timetabled and are showing up on your timetable. In addition to that, you will then have your, any meetings you've got. Staff will have office hours. It will also include your one-to-ones with your personal tutor, because you'll have, a couple of those every teaching block. So that kind of gives you an idea on the contact hours. In terms of what the week looks like, it will likely vary week on week. You might have some lectures and some seminars that might run every other week. You might have workshops that might run, every 4 weeks. So it does tend to vary. In terms of, so Sean's just asked a question around induction week. So when we talk about induction, so on our degree and in our department, our induction runs for 1 week. And predominantly the induction week is around orientation. So it's familiarising yourself with the university and with the campus. In terms of what it will look like, we would have a kind of like a degree specific talk, which will give you just some of the key information. It might be like dates, books you might want to consider, the additional support that we've got available. But then we supplement that with 3 like personal tutorial group sessions that run throughout the week. So that week is really around familiarising yourself, not just with the campus and the university, but building those relationships with your personal tutor and your personal tutor group that you're going to be seeing, on a weekly basis throughout your first year. So a lot of it is around that. We do offer some taster lectures as well, which students from the feedback always really seem to enjoy those. So rather than these lectures being it's a taster lecture, isn't it? It's more kind of like whetting your appetite for what's to come, essentially, and it just gives students, the experience of higher education and the way in which we teach. So that week really is around just like familiarisation. There's nothing in that week officially that you need to do. We just, as I say, we just want to kind of like introduce you to the university, settle any anxieties, as personal tutors, myself included, both as a personal tutor and course leader. We're there to answer any questions that you might have. But yeah, so it's mainly just around familiarisation, as I say, with the university and with your personal tutor group. We try as well within induction week to incorporate some social elements as well. Again, just to get to know, the other staff members that teach on the degree, and also the other, the colleagues that you're going to be studying and working with over the next 3 years. So that's something that we do try to incorporate as well. Albeit this year it might be more of a virtual social. There's lots of like quizzes and things like that I know, certain groups are doing at the moment. So we're thinking about ways that we can integrate something like that as well. So I hope that answers your question. If I just go back actually, because when I was talking about the workshops as well, I appreciate that I'm potentially like throwing these words around and you might not necessarily know what's the difference between a lecture and a seminar and a workshop. Lectures, that's more of the traditional format when it comes to higher education delivery. So lectures could range anywhere from 20 to 300 students. As on our degree and as a department, we tend to focus less on lectures. Something that we use more are the interactive seminars. So this is when you're in smaller groups of around about 20. They supplement lectures and they're much more around, discussion, very interactive. All of our students, when they join, are issued with a Chromebook, and this is something that we utilise and use within our seminars, again, to make them more interactive. So that's what a seminar will entail. Workshops tend to be more practical and, again, more applied. So a workshop, it could be that you have an assessment workshop. We do run some of those, so extra support for assessments, upcoming assessments that you might have. But also some workshops, and particularly on this degree, one of the workshops that we run for our students takes place in our Centre of Forensic Interviewing suites. And Gary actually is one of the leads on this. I don't actually lead on it, so he'll let me know if I'm missing anything out. So all of our students will have training in interviewing in our Centre of Forensic Interviewing suites, and we use COFI as an abbreviation because that's easier to say. And this is really useful for students. As I say, the Centre of Forensic Interviewing, it's a place where we conduct research. It's also a place where we conduct training in detecting deception and interviewing suspects, victims, witnesses, and developing best practice. So all of our students have the opportunity to do that. As you can imagine, great personal development in terms of, again, building that confidence, but also, really good to be able to put on your CV that you have had, some practical hands-on training in interviewing, which is, useful irrespective of maybe the line of work you want to go down. So, so some of our workshops are really practical. And Gary's just reiterating the fact that all students do get a Chromebook. Okay, I'm just seeing if there's any other questions that I might have missed. Okay, so Lisa putting in something around books to read. We tend to say, in terms of books, I tend to advise students not to buy books because they can be ridiculously expensive, especially if, it's like a first-hand new book. Our library is very well stocked, and, most of the resources are available online in any event. Again, if you are an applicant thinking of joining us in October, certainly there's nothing official that you need to do. But if you do want to start to do any reading around criminology books, then hopefully marketing by now should or will be sending out a list of like summer activities that I put together, which did comprise some non-academic and academic reading. Lisa, you're right in terms of that there is a book that is simply called Criminology by Tim Newburn, which pretty much is the Bible of criminology books, really comprehensive. He writes in a manner that is very easy and straightforward to read. So it's a really good introductory level book. It's a very big, heavy book. And there are various editions. Doesn't really matter that you don't have the most up-to-date edition, because a lot of what he speaks about is criminological theory, which doesn't go out of date and is unlikely to change. So that is a really good criminology book. In terms of a psychology book, one of the, again, a really comprehensive psychology book is by Gross. And again, there are various editions of this, but he's published quite a few psychology books on that. And again, there are a few kind of like criminal psychology books that are quite helpful. Again, this should all be on the the marketing reading list that was sent out. It is sometimes difficult to say to students, this is the book that you need, because all students are different. So, and there's personal preferences. So what you might find particularly engaging and easy to understand, someone else might struggle with, because academics and authors, they'll have different ways of writing. So it really is just having a little look around and seeing what you're engaging with and what you find appealing. But I think the ones that are on the ones that have been sent out, there's like a handful of ones that are quite key and will also cover many of the topic areas that we cover on the degree. You've got, like the forensic psychology handbook as well, which can be useful. Gary's also mentioned the fact that each module has a reading list as well. And as I say, these are predominantly available online. We utilise a lot of journal articles as well, which again are all accessible online and are free as well. Okay, so any questions around maybe specific aspects of the degree or anything that you potentially aren't sure about? Again, spoken a bit in terms of the way we assess you. The degree itself, as I said, very flexible, very applied. We can go into more detail if you want to around, modules, or if there's a particular topic area that you're really interested in. I'll be able to answer if that's something that we do deliver on the curriculum. We're constantly kind of like changing and enhancing our curriculum to include things that we know students are interested in, and also things that do have some currency as well. Next year, we are having more modules that are delivering content on things like offender profiling. We're going to be doing a lot more on courtroom psychology and things like that, which might interest some of you. And as Gary said, typically in induction week, we do a core tour of the campus. We're in discussions at the moment to see how we're going to be delivering all of this virtually. Okay, a question from Izzy. In terms of what's covered on the missing persons investigation module, so this is one of our most popular modules with students. And it's very much a criminology module, albeit psychology can creep into it, and it's run by one of our colleagues, Craig Colley. Again, I don't know if you are if you are a applicant or prospective student, but if you look on our webpage, then it will provide a more kind of like comprehensive list of what's covered. If you wanted to, because I'm not quite sure off the top of my head, the breakdown of the lectures that are covered, because I don't actually teach on this module. But if you did want to email me afterwards, then I could certainly give you kind of like the breakdown in terms of, what's covered on each lectures. But, the way in which that module is framed, broadly speaking, it's very much around the investigation of missing persons, and also looking around what might make someone more vulnerable. So it's incorporating those aspects as well. And I know that Craig as well has a lot of colleagues that come to teach on it that do specialise in this area, from the police and an investigation remit as well. So it is a really popular module. In terms of the forensic investigation, so yeah, we do an entire module on forensic investigation. So that can start with things such as offender profiling, and then it goes into the way in which that we interview people. As I said, it could be suspects, could be victims, could be witnesses, and you'll learn about, the model that we use, which is something called the PEACE model. So one of our colleagues, Professor Becky Milne, was one person that is credited and developed the PEACE model of interviewing, which you can Google and read and find out more about. And this is the model for interviewing that is used across England and Wales now, for, as I say, victims, witnesses and suspects as well, to elicit information, and it's regarded as best practice. So you'll learn about interviewing, and as you'll also learn about, people with certain vulnerabilities, So if you've got people with like learning disabilities and autism and things like that, so that will tie into investigation as well. So it's very much from the psychology perspective on that module. Of course, again, it may be that that you come here and actually, you're quite interested in maybe forensic science. So there are options that you could take on, as I say, forensic investigation from the science perspective rather than the psychology perspective as well. But again, there's things around, I mean, even on my module, we cover things like the biases when it comes to forensic science as well, and biases in decision making. So that all ties into it as well. So one from Georgina in terms of the number of modules that you take. So in your first year, yes, they are all core and you will have 5 modules. And as I said, they will be criminology, criminal psychology, and psychology based. And that will be the same as you move into your second and third year. So you'll have 5 in your second year and 5 in your third year. The difference is in your second and third year that you will be choosing optional modules. And as I said, if you miss, so it's 2 optional modules in your second year and 2 optional modules in your third year, plus the dissertation, which is whatever you want it to be. And the dissertation actually counts as 2 modules itself in terms of credits, because it's a significant body of work, and you're investing a lot of time and energy into it. So it takes up more because it's more substantial. Okay, don't know if any questions, or if anyone's got any questions around, support as well. Coming to university is quite a big transition, and something that we are definitely mindful and aware of. When you first join university, you will be given, as I've alluded to, a personal tutor, and they will remain with you through your first and second year. You will see them on a one-to-one basis. You will also see them within the context of a personal tutor group, which in your first year will be every week. So you get to know them really well, and they are the first port of call for your questions, queries, concerns. And they, as I say, they may be in a position to signpost you onto additional services. Could be academic, could be wellbeing. But you'll develop quite a close professional relationship with them, and they'll likely become one of your references. For when you're applying for any jobs. And when it comes to your final year, you'll then be given or be assigned a dissertation supervisor. And because you'll be spending such a lot of time with your dissertation supervisor, they will then become your personal tutor, and will see you through your final academic year as well. So that's in terms of the support you get from the personal tutor. And then, as I said, it may be that that they signpost you onto our wellbeing service, and they offer a lot in respect of one-to-one sessions, group sessions. They've been fantastic at the moment in terms of offering students like virtual sessions due to the current circumstances. And so we have our wellbeing department. From an academic perspective, yes, we have our learning support tutors that are there to give additional feedback. They can look over drafts, which is far more that we can do as academic members of staff. So if you've got any specific areas that maybe are coming up quite a bit in feedback, it could be maybe like something like spelling and grammar, proofreading, referencing the way that you're structuring an essay. They'll be able to give you one-to-one support with that. And then we've also got our academic skills unit, which again can offer some one-to-one sessions, but they have a lot of handouts and useful resources for students. And it's, as I say, it's a real eclectic mix of why students would want to engage with them. It can be, I've had students in the past that get particularly anxious when they're doing group presentations, and ask can help you, develop some practical skills to help build your confidence with things like that. So it might be maybe you're nervous around a particular type of assessment. So there's ample support available to our students for whatever that might be. Okay, any other questions at all? It's coming up to 2 o'clock now. I appreciate we did start 10 minutes late. But if, as I say, if there's any questions, then we can answer them now. I think we've managed to address all of them. And certainly, if you do have any questions at a later date, then we're going to be around to answer them. If you want any more of a specific breakdown on what university life is going to look like, what Portsmouth is like. Portsmouth is lovely at the moment because the weather's lovely. Then we'll be able to answer those. And hopefully, as I said, we've addressed some of the issues regarding COVID-19, and hopefully some reassurance as well around what it's going to look like this year. In any event, I mean, it is important to recognise that this certainly, this isn't a distance learning degree. So, what our students have been experiencing over the last few months has been very much around, live, interactive, timetabled sessions. Okay, so we're coming up to 2 now. So I'll say there doesn't seem to be any more questions. So I'll say that's all for today, folks. Thank you for your questions. I hope you did find it useful. We certainly look forward to welcoming any new students in October, and I hope that you stay safe and well over the summer. Thanks. Bye-bye.